I did want to talk a little bit about sexism because I don't know how you felt about this, but I felt like Kamala was invisible after a certain point. We stopped hearing about Kamala, a Black woman who doesn't sit well with white supremacists, right? Interestingly enough, held to a higher standard. We can hold Kamala accountable for what she's done, and at the same time, be real about the fact that misogynoir is real in this country, and she has done. She did her job as a prosecutor, and she did participate in some things that were oppressive to Black people. But those systems were in place long before Kamala came along. So politicians are going to politician. And so she's been held to this higher standard, which has always happened with Black women. It happened with Stacey Abrams. It happens with all women of color. Like we have to stand on this moral ground that white women are not, are exempt from. We knew when the woman had an affair with another woman and they got rid of her here in California. So we know that that's not true. But I did want to talk about what your thoughts were on what Kamala's role has played in this election. Sarah Palin was everywhere. Kamala was in the basement.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing they talked about, all the conservative talking heads, is they went after her relations in the past. Like they immediately went for her personal life and talking about affairs and everything else. And I'm like, whilst worshipping at the altar of a thrice married pussy grabber who had an affair with a porn star. Like, I mean, you're absolutely right.
Probably raped girls, right?
Yes, exactly. So you talk about the double standard is pathetic, and the difference with Kamala Harris is obviously, I would argue that it's for someone like Kamala Harris to come in to this position. In my opinion, I wanted Stacey Abrams. I was always on the Stacey Abrams camp, and I thought she would be perfect. But that's because I looked at the specific policies and why I just think Stacey Abrams, there should be a statue erected for her after this election for the work that she's done in Georgia. But I thought that Kamala Harris was a good choice also because as I said, the humility that she had to speak so openly about the decisions she's made in the past was something that I admired. But the attacks that came to her were only ever kind of focused on a personal level. They never really discussed the amazing things that she's put into place as a senator, as the first Black senator, as someone who is so unapologetic in the way that she holds people accountable. To me, it was always going to be a case of what's the lowest hanging fruit. And unfortunately, in this country, when it comes to Black women, that's oftentimes they don't need to go to any other branch. That's all that they need to do because, as you mentioned before, there's already an entrenched bigotry in this country. So many people who these Republican kind of talking heads are trying to appeal to have already made their mind up by seeing what she looks like. And they don't need to kind of pay attention to any other detail. Now, I did think that on the Biden side, I would have given more air to Kamala Harris to be to give her more room to speak out because she is ferocious in the way that she holds people to account. And it's something that I think that if this election hasn't gone this way, I would have looked at that as a role that maybe played a significant factor in why it didn't go a certain direction. But thankfully it has. I just think that there was maybe some internal discussion going on that didn't give her the opportunity to do that. But I don't know what you guys think. I just felt like they could have given her more opportunity to kind of lead the line on certain things.
Yeah, I love Frederick's comment there that she made Brett Kavanaugh cry.
Very true.
It's true. I do also want to think about how Biden gets the nomination somewhere around the time that the Black Lives Matter renewal of protests started happening in response to the tragic murder of George Floyd. And so I think up until that time, they were probably having serious conversations of having Amy Klobuchar as the VP. So I think we should also, I mean, I'm going to lead into the unfair treatment of Kamala in a second, but give credit to the movement force a hand in recognizing how historically Black women have been marginalized. So, you know, remember he came out and said he's going to for sure have a woman VP, and then forced Bernie to say that too. I don't know if you guys remember, this was like as they were having their debate during coronavirus moment. And then what ended up happening is there were more leaked conversations about who was on the list, and then Amy Klobuchar left. And I would say that the person I was gunning for was on the list, but clearly she didn't get it. Karen Bass, who has been a phenomenal politician from Los Angeles that came up in community organizing, and I'm originally from LA. So I uphold folks who do the work here. But I would say, you know, this misogynoir is everywhere. You know, the founders of Black Lives Matter are all Black women. And for a long time, they were putting to the forefront Black men to speak in about BLM in the place of the women that founded this movement. And they also emphasized that it was a leaderful movement. But, you know, to get back to Kamala, we already knew what the right was going to do. You know, they came out the gate with the birtherism arguments that they gave Obama, right? Like her father is not a naturalized citizen or is not a citizen. She's not a citizen. We're like, what? All over the place. But she did, you know, what was interesting, I was looking at some of the exit polls from different cities, and Biden basically almost won 90% of San Francisco because of her, you know? So she is and has a history of being from the Bay, and she has a connection to, you know, she went to an HBCU. So there is something that really connects her to a Black population that clearly they might have been wanting to use, but also scares the Democratic establishment. So I agree with you. There are so many more ways that such a strong, vibrant politician who is incredibly powerful when it comes to debate and arguing could have been used. And also somebody that people had mixed feelings about because of the prosecutorial history. But still, you know, she was put to the side. But I would say, though, that like we should take this moment to honor, you know, if we're calling this Biden election, the first Black woman vice president ever in American history. She could be president. You know, that's massive. But that also says something about America, that we have to go through this door instead of like being able to run a Black woman as president.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty gross. You know, we go with the battle of are we more racist than sexist? And it goes, you know, when we honor intersectionality, the answer is yes to both. You know, and it's really, you know, it's really obnoxious. I get tired of people telling me how corrupt Cory Booker is, how corrupt Kamala is. And I'm like, look at all of the other politicians. I know of under 10 that don't take checks from corporations. So if we remove those people, they all are corrupt. Why are you just pointing out the Black and brown ones, right?
Yeah.